Hola, ¿cómo andan? Espero que muy bien. Estoy muy contento porque volvió Rackeados Estudio Tour. Estamos en la segunda temporada y venimos con toda. No saben los episodios que se van a venir en esta segunda temporada. El episodio del día de hoy fue un episodio que en realidad filmé hace un par de meses en California, Estados Unidos, en Los Ángeles, donde fui a visitar al ingeniero de Doja Cat. Rian Lewis es un amor de persona, me cayó hiper mega bien, es muy simpático. Él es el ingeniero de Yeti Beats, que es crack total. Entonces ellos han trabajado desde Thundercat a Chromeo, Doja Cat, como mencioné, que es su artista principal. Y también han hecho colaboraciones con Tame Impala y con un montón de artistas distintos. También con otros artistas de Latinoamérica como Toquilla. Así que nada, estoy muy manija porque esta entrevista estuvo realmente genial. Está en inglés, entonces está subtitulada. Todo ese trabajo se lo tomó Meraki Siede, que la rompió toda. Es muy difícil subtitular cosas que son técnicas, entonces lleva mucho más tiempo que cualquier video normal, entonces metimos mucho esfuerzo. Todos los videos que son en inglés y que los tenemos que traducir llevan un esfuerzo enorme, así que apreciaría mucho si dejas tu like. Si todavía no hiciste, suscríbete, pues estamos muy cerca de llegar a 100.000 suscriptores, que es un montón y ahí me da muchísima alegría. Es algo que estamos realmente tratando de llegar, así que si nos das una mano con eso. En esta entrevista también nos contó de cuál es su cadena vocal preferida, cuál suele utilizar para artistas como Doja Cat. Nos mostró su estudio, que es su estudio donde él también hace producciones, porque él en realidad está con las manos en la masa haciendo de ingeniero en estos hitazos y en la capital de la música pop. Y entonces se nerdió muy fuerte y él nos compartió un montón de información con la mejor onda del mundo. Y espero que disfrutes de esta entrevista con Rian Lewis.
Hi everybody, my name is Louis Piluso. I'm here with the great Rian Lewis. Thank you so much for receiving us at your beautiful studio.
Oh, thanks for being here.
Give us a short overview of your career and your background.
Yeah, I came up playing in bands. So first punk, and then metal, and then indie rock, and then like singer-songwriter flirting with country Americana kind of a phase. And those are the types of records that I was making in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from, before I moved here. And I moved here in 2016 and immediately started working in like hip hop and pop records. Wow. Those are the engines of the music industry down here to a large extent. So that was the work that was available. They were new genres to me, but also really, really exciting.
Right.
Because I had literally no idea how sample-based music was made. I did everything with live instruments. I was just starting to get into synths kind of when I first moved here, but really everything, my entire musical world was happening from like pickups and acoustic drums and microphones. And then I was thrown into this world where everything was sample-based, and it was just like such an amazing learning experience.
Wow, yeah, and also like coming from like the rock scene, hip hop has a lot of like rock in the sound design. Like it gets quite gnarly and distorted, and there's like lots of similar kind of processes. I came from like a very similar background, so came from being like a hard rock guy when I was a teenager. When I started producing hip hop as well, it was like, wow, I dig this.
Yeah. No, I mean, because by the time I got to hip hop in 2016, at least from an engineering perspective, rap and rock music had been in conversation for a really long time and had been like borrowing ideas from one another. As a drummer, drums are my first instrument. And when I started noticing rock productions using, like layering hip-hoppy samples underneath rock drums.
Yeah,
I was immediately like Dave Fridman with the Flaming Lips. I would hear him doing that quite a bit, and immediately I was like, yes, rock has maybe always needed that to like that's like the next level of rock drums is for like it to have taken a page out of the hip hop book of like this is how hard a kick drum can punch with this much sub. And like, so it was exciting from the rock perspective to see hip hop sounds coming into those records. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like when I noticed how much Decapitator was getting busted out on 808s and everything, I'm like, oh, we distort the bass in rock music as well. Like that's the same. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like we were doing a lot of the same stuff. And then and then also the things that were different were so mind blowing to me. Like, it was a really fun learning experience those first few years for sure.
So nowadays you engineer, you mix, you songwrite as well. Like, how do you balance your day-to-day doing those kind of different hats and different jobs?
It's a little exhausting. It feels like a lot of hats sometimes, and then there's other times where it feels like they're all just like different colors of the same hat. You know what I mean? Especially, so like coming from punk and metal music, a lot of times like the producers in those genres are they are producing through their engineering. Like choosing to record a punk or a metal band in an interesting way is production in that world. Because like the guitar players probably already decided what guitar and what amp and what, like everybody in a rock band has a sound of their own that they're like bringing to the table. And so a lot of like sonic choices are being handed to you. And so it's like, okay, if that's the guitar that you're playing and that's the sound that you're getting, I'm just going to record this in an interesting way.
Right.
I'm going to put a microphone in a Snapple bottle and pan it, you know, put it in the room and pan it over here to get some weird filtered thing. And like that's production in a punk or a rock record sometimes. And it's just defined so differently. Yeah, they feel engineering and production feel more separate in pop and urban music. Like when I have my engineer hat on and I'm working with Yeti or with Doja, it's like very much I really just want to make the technology disappear, and I want to just be a conduit for like their ideas.
Right.
Which is, you know, obviously very different. Like they should be the ones generating the ideas, and I should be the one thinking like, how can I make that sound good?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So how do you started working with him and with Doja?
Oh, it was so random. So I moved to LA knowing exactly two people in the entire industry. There was an artist that I had worked with who was getting some label attention off the merit of some stuff that we had done together. And then there was one person at a label, this amazing man named Josh Dean, who was at Atlantic at the time. We had met in my first like week in LA, and I was like maybe 6 weeks in. I was cat sitting for a traveling salesman, like trying to figure out where I was going to live, and like super stressed about the whole like, oh my God, what did I do? And then this guy called me out of the blue on a Friday night, and he was like, hey, it was my job to put an engineer together for this session, and they just called out sick on me, so I just need somebody to cover for this weekend. And I was like, oh my God, this is like my first LA gig. Thank you. This is amazing. And it's for Atlantic Records. This is fucking incredible. So I show up for the session.
Yeah.
And it was with an artist named Drom. Drom had already worked with Yeti in the past and loved Yeti's personal studio that he had in Hollywood. And it was I understood why. I mean, it was a magical, see, it had a skylight, like no studios in LA have natural light ever.
Right.
And Yeti's place had a skylight. It had like the most perfect couch. It was like light and breezy and had these nice tall ceilings. It was an incredible place to make music. And so anyway, I showed up for the session. Like I said, it was Yeti's private, personal studio, and he was kind of like, what the fuck, like you can't just send random, like he was a little bit miffed at the label for like putting a random person that he'd never met before. Like, he had a Sony mic and all this nice stuff, and he's like, who is this random person that showed up? So anyway, he sort of met me, you know, with an eyebrow raised, and we were the exact same age. We both grew up playing in punk bands. We just immediately hit it off. Like we immediately had shit to talk about and liked each other's vibe. And so anyway, Drom's management, I think, ended up saying some really nice stuff about my engineering work to Yeti later, and he was like, "Oh, hey, I heard you're not bad. I'm developing this artist named Doja, and it'd be cool." So it's like I probably did my first session with Yeti and Doja at by the end of 2016.
So you were right at the start. Right
at the start. I mean, I was replacing a brilliant engineer and producer who's, you know, now on to amazing things. A dude named, he goes by Cambo. His name's Cameron Bartolini.
Yeah.
But Doja actually called me New Cambo for the first like 4 months that I worked for her. So yeah, there was another engineer that had been working for Yeti, his Cambo, and I got to LA right as he was like opening his own studio and kind of spreading his wings a bit. And he wrote one of the biggest country songs of a couple years ago, this song called Fancy Like. He's really killing it. He's such a talented dude.
I mean, where do you normally record with Doja? It's like different studios or at Yeti's?
Those her first album, the Amala album, we did that entirely at Yeti's studio. And then on Hot Pink, we started working out of Sound Factory Yeti has a long-standing relationship with the guy Leo that manages Sound Factory. Amazing dude. And we love the Sound Factory fit. They've been amazing to us. Like their staff is incredible. We feel really at home there. So we made almost all of Hot Pink and Planet Her at Sound Factory. We did a little bit of work at Westlake for Planet Her. And then she's kind of been wanting to work at different places. Like we've been out at this studio in Malibu for her new album, Scarlet. And it's cool. Each of these places, they do have their own sound, each of these places a little bit. Like their own unique combination of like, this place has a Neve preamp, this place has a Great River, this place has a reissue Telefunken, this place has an original one.
Right.
And then like differences in monitoring and conversion and everything. Like the new album was on an Apogee Symphony.
Yeah.
And I immediately was like, I could immediately tell that the conversion of her voice on the way in was better, and then also the DAC for monitoring was like, I was like, okay, cool. I'm happy to be on Apogee. This is fun. It was cool to like experience that difference.
And are you going to stick with Apogee now, or?
I use Apogee. I had switched to Apogee about 2 years ago myself. I use an ensemble.
Oh, right.
And we were using what's it called, the Symphony, I think.
Yeah.
When we were at Harbor.
But it has the same converters, I think.
I'm pretty sure they're the exact same chips and everything.
Absolutely.
So this new generation of Apogee conversion, I'm so impressed with.
Absolutely. Lots of people, like in Argentina, it's very different how things work. Like in studio sessions, I know here there's lots of like camps of producers and composition and stuff and songwriting. And in those kind of projects, your job as an engineer, does it involve like several producers, or it's normally like Doja and Yeti and or?
A lot of times in my experience, the camps and then the sessions with artists have been kind of separate.
All right.
Like I just, Yeti and this amazing producer named Jorge Miliano. We were just in the studio doing some writing for Peso Pluma.
Yeah.
Peso didn't make it into the sessions.
Yeah.
But we were just sort of there generating material that everybody thought, that he would be into. And then the sessions with the artist, usually the song has sort of been written. If the artist is, I've got to say, contrary to the experience that a lot of other engineers have had in Los Angeles, because you're exactly right, it's very, very common for there to be like songwriting camps, and then once the song is written, then a lot of them they're pitched to the artist, and then they get cut, with the artist with like sort of a smaller crew, you know what I mean? That happens an awful lot. It just through the sheer chance of having wound up with Yeti, we don't work with writers very often.
Yeah.
Yeti tends to latch on to artists where he's one of the least controlling forces I've ever seen in the studio. His whole business model, if you want to call it that, is he looks for artists who are doing things that amaze him.
Yeah.
Where the artist is just like alchemy, and he's like, I can't believe these amazing ideas that you have. And then he just puts them in the studio, makes a bunch of beats for them, and just like really turns them loose and lets them do their thing. And like, we don't use Vocaline or Melodyne a lot of the time. Like he really wants to hear what they did.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to hear what we can do with it, or how we can mold it. He works with people. He brings people into the room that are so talented that he's just like, I can't believe it's so cool the way you did it. I don't want to touch it. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And so like we've never used writers there's never been a writer on a Doja Cat song, at least not that I've been involved in.
Yeah.
She's always sung her own verses and hooks on all the stuff that we've ever done together. Yeah, I guess I have less experience with the sort of professional writer side of things. And certainly I have very little experience with the songs for pitch world. Because a lot of times with songs for pitch, as a writer, you want to make the song maybe as sort of as generic as possible so that the largest number of artists would feel comfortable recording it.
Yeah.
And the artists that Yeti and I tend to get in the studio with, they're doing something that's so unique, it would be crazy to approach it like that.
Yeah. Do you use Pro Tools?
Yeah.
And what's like kind of your preferred vocal chain for, like, if you have every option?
If I have every option, I I start women out on a 251, and I tend to start men out on a vintage 87, and then we kind of go from there. If I find myself pulling out a bunch of digital tools in a tracking session, that to me is an indication that I have the wrong mic.
Right.
Or that the singer's the wrong distance from it, or like something's wrong.
Yeah.
If we're tracking and I'm pulling out multiband and soothe and all this stuff, usually that you do whatever you have to do in the moment, especially if you just have to work quickly.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the wrong mic is up and you just have to keep cutting on it
Exactly.
because like it would be inappropriate to interrupt the person's flow. But to me, if the 87 sounds good on the guy and the 251 sounds good on the lady, then like Great River, I love the Great River because to me it has the three-dimensionality and the size of the vintage Neves, but they're just mega consistent. Like you get the same one every time, whereas like with Neves, especially older Neves, it's totally, there's like some really woolly dark ones and some really bright fizzy ones, and like it can be different every time. So I love the Great River, and I love the new Neve 1073 LB, and I'll use those to just kind of keep it consistent. You know what I mean, from studio to studio. And then CL1B is great when that's not around. I'm happy to use an LA3A or an LA2A or an 1176.
Yeah.
This is kind of embarrassing, but because I came from such a rock background, when we started working at Sound Factory and we had their like vintage mic locker and all this stuff at our disposal, I picked the most ridiculous. I had her on such a rock chain for that album. She was on a vintage 87, going into the mic pre in the vintage API console there, and then into an 1176. And like they had a 251 and a Great River and a Tube Tech. But I didn't know that's what everybody else was doing, and I was like still doing the thing the chain that I knew well. And then the first session that we did at Conway, I remember, I came in and the engineer had he had set up 251 Neve CL1B, and he's like, I just kind of gave you the thing everybody seems to, and I was like, oh, is that?
And that's the secret.
Is that what everybody else is doing?
Yeah.
And then we tried it, and I was like, oh, I get it.
I get
This
it.
is it's so flexible. A lot of people have landed on that for a very good reason, I think. I use a tube preamp here in my studio, and I love the results that I get with it. I just did my first project, I think, ever where the vocals went to mix with no EQ on them. That's never happened to me before. And that was this like C12 clone that I had somebody build for me back in Portland.
Nice.
That's like all of really high quality components and a good head basket and everything. So it was that going into a tube pre and then into a JLM audio like LA3A kind of a thing. And I don't know. I like it so much when I'm here that I might start bringing it to studio. Because man, that tube, once again, a lot of my mentors from the rock world, and especially as a guitar player, I noticed that like tubes do this totally undeniable thing, and harmonics just leaping out and all this stuff. I got really used to the way that to tubes being a part of my workflow when I was making rock and indie and singer-songwriter records. I understand. I mean, transistor preamps. I appreciate the headroom.
Yeah.
I like that the singer can be more dynamic, and it won't go into clipping or anything like that. But at the same time, whenever I use a really good, simple tube pre, the sound that just lands into the Pro Tools session feels so close to being done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man.
Record ready.
Have you found a tube pre that you like?
Yeah. In Argentina, there's very good manufacturers. Like I told you, it's very hard to get gear from abroad.
Yeah.
So we have like a very good national industry of manufacturers. And I have like a couple of Altec clones, like of the 1566.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. I actually made a video like recording with only one mic, the drums, the bass, the guitar and vocals, and practically not using anything else but the tube preamp. And it's like I didn't have to use compression, I didn't have to use EQ, it's like the bass, there's
oh my God. The bass response on those Altecs is what the hell?
What the hell, So it's like, I really, really like them. Like with vocals, it's a bit more difficult because like what you said, like if you have a very dynamic singer, like he'll sometimes just clip and start distorting. Like the distortion point is quite low in the threshold. So you have to be like very careful and record like with lots of headroom just to make sure that nothing is going to go into the red.
Because if you're working with Mavis Staples, then like that tube distortion is everybody's like, yeah, we did the thing.
Yeah.
But like, I think it could be a hard sell potentially if like I had a pop vocal in there and it like square wave clips, you know, on a belted part, and they're like, we can get rid of that, right? And I'm like, no.
But for indie music like rock or whatever, like I think or blues is just fantastic. So I actually did like a cover of Cream, the band from the 60s, and it was like instant. It was like, oh my god, it was
I bet
just that what I needed, and the drums were so fat, and I loved it. I also found out that you worked with Chromeo as well.
Yeah.
How was that like?
That was incredible. A lot of times, that's one of the few times that I've worked on a feature type thing where we actually got in the studio. Features are always electronic. Like,
really?
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, features are sent to people and then they record it with their crew and send it back. That was one of the first times. So it was when I was working with Drum.
Yeah.
I'd been his exclusive engineer for like a year at this point or something like that. He was doing great because Broccoli was such a big song. And Chromeo expressed interest in having him out on a song, and they had just moved from New York to Burbank. And so they were like, come in and track it at our place. You know, I think they were kind of excited to have, certainly more, like I got to the session early and, this is embarrassing. I'm forgetting his name, but their keyboard player is the sweetest human being.
Really?
Oh my God, he was wonderful. I showed up to the session early and he just gave me a tour of the whole place.
Wow.
And was like, this is like 4 times as much square footage as we could afford in New York. So we're just like he was like, look at this room, it's just storage. We didn't have room for storage. But he was so, and we were nerding out about gear.
Yeah.
And like they had just set up the Redco Redbox Q system. He's like, they're passive and they track left to right and he was so excited about their headphone system. I knew that he was a kindred spirit because he was into the unsexy stuff.
Right.
But no, it was incredible. We got to their studio and they played us the song, and I got to cut their lead singer's vocal on the tune, and then we cut Drum's feature. He just like pulled it out of thin air like he always did. And, that was a really incredible experience. I never get to meet the featured art. Like Doja has worked with so many artists that I'm a massive fan. I love Smino, and like I would have done anything to get in the studio with Smino, but it just wasn't like we sent the track to him and
he recorded.
He maybe even with Monty Booker. I mean, it would have been so cool to get in the studio with them, but that stuff is always long distance. So
yeah, absolutely. And I love how Chromeo works, and I've seen like thousands of videos of them on YouTube, like the way they produce like this in 1 second. And
oh man, and when I was talking to their keyboard player, at least at that point, this is probably 2017 or something like that, he said that they were still doing their demos in Cakewalk.
Yeah.
How cool is that? I mean,
that's very cool.
I've heard there's a story about Rick Rubin working on the Neil Diamond album that he did. And apparently Neil came in with all of these really fleshed out demos. And he was like, I'm ready to make the out. Look at how good these demos sound. And Rick was, if I'm getting the story right, he basically said, this is a great batch of songs. It's not the batch of songs that we're going to record together. And what I want you to do is, and he went to the trunk of his car and got an analog reel-to-reel cassette.
Yeah.
Like either a small reel-to-reel or a cassette recorder, and was like, you're going to do your demos on this, just vocal and guitar. And like insisted that it just be the purity of the idea.
Yeah.
And not to be gussied up with like, well, here's what the drums are going to do. And, you know, like, and that is like Chromeo has it fucking figured out. Like those are the important things that they get down in Cakewalk is like, what's the shape of the thing? What's it going to make us feel like? What's the mood of it?
Yeah.
You know, what's the emotional content of it? Rather than like, what sick synth are we going to have? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Their approach is really, they get it.
They get it.
They get it.
Yeah, and then they go to the studio and record like lots of layers and stuff. I've been watching everything. Yeah, they're amazing. And how was your involvement with Thundercat?
We did one really long marathon session together. It was really, really fun. It was again for Drum.
Yeah.
And Thundercat and a great producer named Clams Casino and one of my closer working relationships and friends in Los Angeles, this guy Roger Shahayed, who's just like a freaking genius. He's one of the most brilliant keyboardists making popular music right now. And he's releasing some solo piano stuff that everybody should be on the lookout for. It's really beautiful. But anyway, it was Roger, Clams, Thundercat. They just jammed. There was a keyboard. There was a keyboard that was set up with drum sounds, a keyboard that was set up with keyboard sound, and just sort of, the great world of MIDI.
Yeah.
And then Thundercat on his bass.
Yeah.
And they probably played for 3 hours uninterrupted. I remember I was making markers in Pro Tools, and every time that they had like morphed into a new, what you could call a new idea, a new little nugget of music that was a different tempo and a different groove and maybe a different key from the last thing that they were doing. Every time that they made a new piece of music, I would give it an alphabetical, so it was A, B, C, D, you know what I mean? And by the time that they were on hour 3 and just about getting bored with what they were doing, I was doing BBB, CCC.
Oh, so you made it.
I had gone through the whole alphabet twice.
Wow.
And they were, it was just this never-ending, the level of musicianship between the three of them was just like, it was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. It was really, it was amazing.
Wow, how nice.
And he was so laid, he came in, he introduced himself as Steven. I didn't notice his bass at first. And like, I was just like, okay, cool, Steven's here. Steven seems rad. I wonder when Thundercat's showing up. Yeah. And then later, and I saw his bass and I was like, Steven, it occurs to me I know you by another name. I'm a fan. It's nice to meet you. But it was so much fun. It was a great session.
He's amazing.
He's absolutely incredible.
So good. And he's also such an amazing singer.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Music is like breathing for that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like none of this. I'm sure there was a point where it was hard and he was like, drilling stuff in his bedroom, in high school and everything, but it's not hard for him anymore. It's like breathing at this point.
Oh my God, it's so wonderful. So let's start with the studio tour.
Yeah, sure.
And geek out over the gear.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Ahora un mensaje especial de nuestro patrocinador DistroKid. ¿Haces música y deseas compartirla en todas las plataformas digitales sin complicaciones? DistroKid es la solución que necesitas. Con DistroKid puedes llevar tus canciones a Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon y más en minutos. Además, DistroKid ofrece una herramienta para gestionar tus regalías y conectarte con otros artistas sin cargos adicionales. En DistroKid, con su plan anual, puedes subir toda la música que quieras mientras sea de tu autoría. Y vos te quedás con un 100% de las regalías. Lo mejor de todo es que nos dieron un 7% de descuento para la comunidad de este canal. Para acceder solamente tenés que hacer clic sobre el link de la descripción. No esperes más, visita DistroKid y empezá a distribuir tu música hoy mismo. Volvemos al video.
What computer do you like to use to record?
I'm on a Mini.
Yep.
It's been doing great for me. Shout out to my friend Jesse Ray Ernster. He started telling me about how good the really high oversampling rates sound on some of the plugins that we both use.
Yeah.
And I started trying those high oversampling rates and they did sound good.
Nice.
And now my fan turns on all the time. And my computer's like, stop. I think I'm going to have to upgrade, but the Mini really has been chugging along for me for several years. I've been very impressed with that thing.
Do you find it like uncomfortable to work with oversampling and the latency at all?
I don't love it.
No.
I mean, there's a certain amount of latency that I'll tolerate on that final mix bus where so much of my processing is going. And then if the latency starts showing up in any of the buses that feed into that, then I have a real problem. So yeah, I find myself needing to freeze things on occasion. Same. And you just sort of, we do what we got to do.
Absolutely.
I'm using the Apogee Ensemble. I'm hooked on that thing, man. I love it. I think the converters are incredible.
Yeah.
And this right here, Apogee, you guys are geniuses for putting this this guitar and like with the inputs and the reamping.
Oh my God, yes.
So you can come out stereo and like I can go out, I can process stuff through my Strymon El Capistan or Blue Sky or
without needing a reamp box or anything. I mean, it's
just right there.
Yeah, I love that interfaces are now starting to include it. I mean, it's key.
I'm totally lusting after the symphony, but the symphony doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe I'm going to stay on the ensemble for a long time because of that one feature.
Absolutely. So you also have other converters I can see. You have the Burl.
Yeah, the Burl is the main converter that I use to come in on. It's my main ADC. And then I'm using this, I've been using the Dangerous D-Box for a long time now, hence the version 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, the D-Box is really, that was a big upgrade for me. The DAC in it is amazing. The headphone amps in it are incredible. I was using the summing in it for a while, and it gave me a really bad attitude about mix notes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, because, I'm a dweeb, so I would run test tones through the whole rig to make sure that I was like, totally even left to right and exactly where I had sort of left things. And so if I would get a little mix note about like, hey, can we move the tambourine and the bridge from the left to the right or something like that?
Yeah.
It would like, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do, that's a ton of, so moving everything in the box, I feel like I maybe sacrificed 3 or 4% sonically, and really that's like, I noticed the biggest difference on rock and indie stuff. On like urban and pop stuff, I can't really, like staying in the box just doesn't seem to hurt it at all.
Yeah.
I get that you get all the transient, I don't know, it just seems to work just fine. So anyway, that's all to say, I started looking more into digital tools that would give me the like width and the separation and the saturation I was getting from running into the Day King mic pre's and everything. I got some weird stuff over on this side. This is a Yamaha PM1000, the two channels out of a Yamaha PM1000 console.
Wow.
These are the ones that sometimes get referred to as Japanese.
Japanese.
Yeah,
I love that.
Basically, Yamaha they wanted to do a line of consoles that had that were Class A amplifier, transformers in and out with inductor equalizers. So like a Neve idea, but implemented like pretty cheaply. Yeah. And they sound amazing.
Really?
They're incredible for like overheads or rock guitars, or they have a really cool sort of electrified quality on hand percussion.
Yeah.
I really like them.
Nice. And then you have the ART.
The Art Pro VLA, I haven't used it in a long time, but the last time I probably ran a drum loop through it just this last year. Yeah. And to this, it still does something that nothing in the digital environment I've ever heard. It does something I've just never heard another compressor do, but you can close up the attack and the release all the way. And because it's an opto circuit, it still lets like kind of the perfectly shaped kick and snare transient through the compressor. Right. And so if you do fast attack and release and you crank the ratio up and you really overdrive the outputs of this thing and then use like a pad on the output, it's Dave Fridman Flaming Lips. Right. Kind of to a T. One of my favorite music makers, one of my favorite producers, of my lifetime. Yeah. And I love that sound. I've heard him use a Pro VLA on so many records, and I don't know, whenever I like really smash a drum loop through this, I get this very Dave Fridman.
I wonder if he used it on the Tame Impala records.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if he used it specifically. I know that over the years he's been a big advocate of, like, he's used the original Pro VLA on a bunch of big stuff that he's done.
Absolutely. So here you have a nice 500 series lunchbox.
Indeed.
What do you have here?
This is a company I'm incredibly excited about. This is JLM Audio. So this is his LA500A. This is like an LA3A type of thing. Yeah. But it's with his own optocell. It doesn't use the Kenetech, and he's done a really nice job on the opto portion of it. And then this makeup gain amplifier is just so huge sounding. Wow. It's got the biggest transformer I've ever seen in a 500 series piece of equipment. I'm surprised it even fits in the rack. Yeah. And it's just an incredible, this is the compressor that makes me not lust after a Tube Tech. Wow. I get to use the Tube Tech every day when I'm freelancing at studios, and then I come back here to my studio and run vocals through this. and I'm like just as happy.
Just as happy.
I love that thing.
Well, that's a huge statement. I have to try it.
Yeah, no, it's really incredible. And he even makes a bunch of op amp. Like right now, it has his 99V op amp in them. But I just ordered some of these hybrid op amps that run in Class AB mode.
Oh, nice.
And this is a more kind of like, oh God, I'm getting so I'm using some really foofy terminology here. But
don't worry.
The 99V op amp that he ships in these has a kind of a tubey, neavy fuzziness, like warmth and fuzziness to it, and saturation. And these hybrid op amps just make it a little bit cleaner. I'm probably going to try these in the EQ. But this is his solid state Pultec kind of an idea.
Nice.
And it's incredible. Look at all the additional frequency points that it has. It's incredible. It's way more like a Lang in terms of the frequency points that it has. And then check this out. If you push in the bandwidth control, it turns into a shelf.
Oh, really? Oh my God, I love
it. I've never seen a Pultec that does that.
I love the design as well. I mean, it looks so cool.
It does. Yeah, he's killing it. And it has that same huge output transformer that the LA500A has. So anyway, Joe Malone in Australia is doing the Lord's work over there.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I'm trying to get everything that he makes over time.
And definitely I'll check him out. And what's this third one?
Oh, this is, I tried to build 2 of these and the other one didn't work. I put these together from a kit, but this is a sound sculptor. This is a really cool idea. It's a tape simulator that actually uses tape heads.
Yeah.
To make it doesn't just saturate transformers and use diodes.
Yeah.
It actually uses like real tape heads to make the thing.
I've never heard of anybody who was doing those kind of things.
It's really cool. There's also, I've got this Handsome Audio Zulu, which I think this does mainly rely on transformers and diodes, but good Lord, it sounds really, really great.
Wow.
I love bringing vocals in through this guy.
So that's like a saturator. What else?
Yeah, it's a saturator, but it can operate in such high headroom. Like you've got a headroom control over here, so low, pro, and high. Yeah. And then on the back, there are these switches that adjust the sort of calibration. Yeah. So you can have it set for really low. You can get really, really woolly and crunchy, or stay like more hi-fi and clean. Wow. But yeah, it doesn't, it will go into distortion, absolutely. But it can also stay really, really clean. It's cool.
Nice. I see you also have lots of very cool pedals.
Yeah. This is super fun. I played guitar in a band for years and years, and definitely fell in love with pedals a really, really long time ago. They were a big part before I could afford outboard gear. Yeah, I was processing my tracks through pedals.
Nice.
A lot. Like getting the El Capistan and the Strymon Big Sky. Yeah. Like I leaned on those hard as my main delays and reverbs when I first got them, because they were just better than anything I had. I mean, it was before I had Valhalla. I'm 42, so this came along before plugins were as good as they are in this present moment.
So you use them for vocals and
vocals, guitars. God, this as a guitar delay on a mix is amazing. But an old friend of mine that I used to tour with now owns Cattle and Bread. Oh, and he's been really, really generous with these pedals, and I am so blown away. I wish. I want to make a time machine so that some of these were available when I was playing guitar in a band. I mean, these are really, really thoughtful pedals. He's got his Foundation Overdrive series, which is like an amp in a box kind of an idea. This Tribute thing is so cool. It's kind of a Klon style overdrive, but with one parametric mid-range band. Mm-hmm. So for example, I can pull up my Tele. Yeah. And then dial in some 400 hertz. Nice. And it imitates a PAF humbucker. Yeah. Like immediately. It's really, really cool.
I love it.
Or make a humbucker more chimey, or whatever you want to be. It's a really smart implementation of that idea.
So you normally take a couple out and just route them through the reamp out.
Totally. Or and it's also fun, if I'm writing in here with somebody, then like this soft focus is such a cool pitch shifter reverb kind of. I mean, it's just a really interesting spatial effect, and so it's fun to. I like surprising. I like putting a guitar in an artist's hands and then running them through a couple of pedals that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
And just sort of like having a little surprise moment of like, let's see what we get from this.
Absolutely. I
So
love that.
soft focus is definitely, that's like one of the main ones that I hand to people.
Have you tried anything from Game Changer Audio?
No, tell me about them.
I met them at NAMM, and they do this like pedal that is called Plasma. That
Oh God.
yeah, I really want to try that one. And when I went to the booth, they already ran out of stock because they're freaking amazing. And they gave me one of those. They have a pedal that's called a Sustainer that looks like the sustain pedal from a piano.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for guitar.
Oh, those
and
are
stuff.
both from the same company?
Yes.
Whoa.
They're really, really cool. And they're really nice guys.
Oh, so they come by that name, quite honestly. They are doing some pretty cool shit. Wow.
Yeah. So what do we have here?
Oh, I just love this guy. This is the Roger Mayer Axis Fuzz. Roger Mayer was Jimi Hendrix's guitar tech, and
Yes.
this is the fuzz circuit he built for Axis Bold as Love.
Huge Hendrix fan.
Oh man, that thing is so sick. That classic Strat straight into a fuzz pedal, and then the volume turned all the way down. That
Yeah.
really glassy, clean tone.
Oh,
It does that so
my-
nicely.
Yeah, and this guy invented like lots of pedals, right? Like is he the same guy that did Octavio?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine just designing these pedals for an artist, and then all of those pedals become like legendary.
I mean, I can't believe. Imagine that the electric guitar
Yeah.
was like barely 10 years old,
Yeah, exactly.
and you're like already bringing it to like some of the highest
Yeah.
heights that it will ever go. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy, and everybody 60 years later are still searching for those sounds and wanting them. Same thing like with tube preamps and all the classic compressors and EQs and stuff. Like things really haven't gotten that much better since the 50s and 60s.
No, I mean, when you look at like Coil Audio
Yeah.
and Highland Dynamics and
Yeah.
some of these really stellar companies that are building their gear around tubes, it's like Bill Putnam and
Yeah.
RCA shit from way back in it's like they nailed it.
They nailed it.
They totally nailed it.
I don't know why there hasn't been that much like innovation apart from like digital stuff, like in the analog and guitar building as well. Like we still look for those classic guitars. Maybe
It
it's
is
because of the
interesting.
music.
Did you pick up any guitars at NAMM?
I didn't have any time.
I picked up a couple
Yeah,
that were like, I just noticed that this year in particular, the like Chinese like low cost market has
Yeah.
like really exploded.
right.
You can just tell that a lot of people have picked up the guitar in the last 5 years, basically. And like I ended up it's like with some of the newer Squiers that are made entirely with laser guided
Right.
machines.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is a pretty well
Yeah,
put
absolutely.
together instrument actually. I was pretty impressed with like, I remember like maybe 5 years ago, anytime you'd pick up one of those cheap Chinese
Yeah.
guitars, the polyurethane finish would be kind of gummy,
Right.
you know, and feel bad, and the frets would not be, you know, they would have like frayed edges, and you know what I mean? And these were all, now admittedly, I know that I want to play some of these guitars out in the wild.
Yeah.
Because like you know that they put extra love on the ones that
Exactly.
are gonna like serve as an example to everybody.
Yep.
So like who knows what the quality control is like? You can't make a $500 guitar with a Bigsby on it that has good quality control. I mean,
No,
there's
you
no
can't.
way that is possible. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play out in the wild. But I was personally impressed. I remember picking up a couple and being like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, you probably have to get them like set up again or something if you buy
Right.
one.
This is fun. Here's this was really I'm kind of amazed that I mean, this is just a spring reverb like would go in a
nice.
twin or something.
Yeah.
And you can actually just, if I just really max out the amount of digital gain that I have in the box, and I come out of one of these reamp outputs into this guy and then really goose the input on the way in.
Yeah.
I pick up a little bit of noise, but it's a real mechanical
It's a
spring
real one.
reverb that's like just as easy as 2 patch cables. It's
Oh,
really,
that's
really cool.
nice.
And it's a massive improvement over any spring plugin I've ever heard. I'm noticing that in the American music industry, people are alarmingly susceptible to marketing. And so like there's this idea that the companies who just spend the most on advertising are making the best sounding, which is fucking insane and a little dim-witted, if I'm being honest. I have my tech got these working, but I still want to. These were really, really inexpensive on Craigslist. A friend of mine back in Portland has successfully converted some of these into mic pre's.
Nice.
And has said like absolutely. They have EF86s in them, which are some of my favorite tubes. I just love the way that any audio sounds coming out of an EF86.
What brand are they?
These are. They were sold under another brand, but this is an Akai M7 or M8, I believe. Nice. So anyway, like we were talking about, good interleave transformers, good tubes, basically really, really good guts.
Yeah.
But currently they're set up to be amplifiers for the output of a tape machine.
Nice.
Rather than to be mic pre's. So they're just looking cool and gathering dust at the moment.
At the moment.
But eventually, what I'd really love to do is get in touch with Bryce Gonzalez at Highland Dynamics and have him convert these into some mic pre's. Maybe even mic pre's that have. Because if I can switch between, these have pentodes and triodes in them.
Oh.
And so I could do maybe a culture vulture kind of,
nice.
You know what I mean? Be able to switch the flavor of it.
Can't you use it now like at a line level preamp?
It's set up more for instrument level, actually.
Nice.
I guess more, now that I think about it, these must be set up less so for the output of the tape machine than probably the input of it. The gain on these is crazy. If you plug an electric guitar into this pickup input, you have to keep the volume on 1 or it turns into a fuzz pedal. Like they just have an insane amount of gain and the impedances are weird, so it's doing weird stuff.
Love it.
But anyway, eventually somebody will love up on this thing and it'll be a great super euphonic tube preamp. This is the tube pre that I was talking about when we were sort of first getting set up. I love that. It's a Portland company called Hamptone. This is yet another person who just sort of understands the old ways of how gear was made. But I think it's very much taking after some old RCA tube circuits. It's really simple, cool. Low part count, good parts. My tech just I was using new old stock tubes in it and I just put in JJ's and I think I'm the happiest I've ever been with it, which is crazy. But JJ's sound really, really good in that pre. Anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the instruments.
Yeah. Actually, your timing is perfect. I just got all of these back from getting repaired. Nice. But basically, I have a P bass here with a Lawler in it, and then I just have this cheap Rogue knockoff of the Beetle bass.
Yeah, how does it sound?
It sounds incredible. And it actually, the Rogues are better intonated.
Really?
Than the Hofners or the Epiphones.
Wow.
Like I couldn't get the other two to, I went to a store that had all three and I kind of felt like the tone was the same kind of no matter what. But yeah, the other two would not intonate, and this played perfectly in tune from like day one. Anyway, I love this thing to death, and honestly, I think I'm kind of, there are so many guitars that I lust after. I want something with P90s, I want a Jazzmaster, I want like all these different things, but with this P bass and this Beetle bass, I'm like set for bass forever. Lovely. I'm like super happy with the tones that
Absolutely, it's like the two basses one has to have, like indie, and classic, like old school sounds, and then for a fat modern sound, P bass.
Fat modern sound or tone knob on 0, and it's the Motown thing.
Right.
Like it's so freaking flexible. Love the P bass.
Yeah, it's like the combo I want to have eventually. So yeah, absolutely.
I recommend it very, very highly. And then American Ash Telecaster.
Lovely.
This is probably my main guitar. Fender Custom Shop No-Caster pickups, so they're Alnico 2 instead of Alnico 3.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite Tele sound.
Oh my God.
Is the Alnico 2.
Love it.
And then Frankenstrat. This is just a no-name Frankenstrat I found at Guitar Center for $500.
Nice.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah?
Really, really fat neck.
Wow.
Like uncharacteristically fat neck that's really, really fun to play. And then I just got this last year.
Oh, sweet.
I love this guy.
So cool.
Yeah, this is a really affordable guitar, and it kind of slays. It plays incredibly.
I love Gretsch.
And I just had this, usually this comes as a master volume.
Yeah.
And I just had this converted to a high pass filter.
Really?
So it can roll off low end.
Yeah. Wow, so cool.
The pickups can be kind of dark, but they're cool. And so I was like, I think I want to keep them, but I just want the ability to roll off. I was playing it through this MXR Timmy, and the way that the bass control works on that pedal is that it's cut only. So if you have the treble and the bass all the way up, they're not cutting, and then you just roll it back from there. And so I was noticing it always sounded good with the bass rolled back. Anyway, we'll see. It could be, sorry, I'm nerding out. But
no, I love it.
I'm really excited to hear that. I haven't even plugged it in yet.
I love this. And then on this side, we have all the synths.
Yes, Synth World is over on the other side of the room.
Up here?
OB6?
OB6.
Yeah, that was my first, that was like my first big splurge on a synth. And I don't know that I've ever been so happy with a purchase so immediately.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really good.
God, I love that thing.
And then do you use it with like the Arturia keylab?
Yeah, I opted just because the space is so limited in here. All the MIDI ends up at this Motu box over here.
Yeah.
And then goes to all of the various places. So I can control the OB6, the Waldorf, the Behringer, and the Arturia modular stuff.
Yeah.
All from this one keyboard. And it just makes how insanely small this room is
yeah,
feel
like
a little bit less crowded.
Talk to us about your modular setup.
Oh man, I'm still very much midway on my modular journey. I basically just got into it to try to come up with, I wanted some interesting sounds that could surprise me a little bit. Like modular is just confusing enough to me that I wanted sounds where I would be like, I don't really know how I did that, but I like it.
Yeah, random.
Yeah, exactly. Randomness and alchemy. So I have some randomness. I have more of like there's a couple of bass voices that I can put together with this that are either like really big and wide and sumptuous, or really deep and very mono, and or really percussive.
Yeah.
You can almost get like kick drum and snare kinds of really percussive stuff out of this. I don't know if there's a chance that I won't have any of this shit in 3 years. I might get fed up with it and just sell all of it at some point.
Right.
But it has taught me so much
Yeah.
about synthesis. Like,
Absolutely.
I use plugins differently.
Yeah.
Like I'm constantly thinking, can I send an LFO to that?
Yes,
like
me too.
every parameter in the world, I'm like, wait, could I modulate that?
Yeah.
And I automate plugins, and I put movement into my mixes in a way different way than I did before I got into modular. So I'm grateful to this world for having taught me so much, but I do find it a little. I'm not using it as part of my music creation as much as I would like to. So yeah, we'll see. I might not have any of this stuff in 3 to 5 years, but I still will be using synths differently because of having to learn all this crap.
Nice. So do you have everything like already patched in with MIDI, like every piece of gear?
Yeah, every input and output ends up at this Motu.
Yeah.
And this little sucker does a really great job of keeping everything straight. I can. Like a lot of times I'll just demo the MIDI, with a virtual instrument.
Yeah.
And then once because I'm a terrible keyboard player. I'm like caveman minus some. And so I usually have to think about the playing and the chord voicing and all that kind of stuff, separately in sort of a demo phase. And then I take I just run the MIDI out using the Motu. I go USB to the Motu, and then the Motu multi-pin MIDI to all the synths. And it's like a really streamlined way of doing it.
Great. So then you have your main microphone here, I guess?
This is, this is one of the most incredible mics I've heard, I don't know, probably ever. I really, Soyuz absolutely blows my mind. They make things the way that Neumann and Telefunken and Lomo and all of these venerated old companies used to make stuff, and you can really, really hear it. So that has become my main microphone for any instrument. Like, I've never, my whole life, I would always marvel at other people's acoustic guitar sound, especially Nigel Godrich. I'd hear acoustic guitars on any Nigel Godrich album and just be like, how did you make it sound like it's just in the room with me? And it's so like hyper real.
Yeah.
And like, I was just using this to record acoustic guitars a couple weeks ago and was like,
that's the sound?
That's the sound. It's so incredible to me. So hand percussion, acoustic guitar, that's my mono mic on piano I use the Soyuz
nice.
Smaller condensers on the piano most of the time, but sometimes I want a mono sound, and so I'll set this up as that. It doesn't, I think because I have found myself in the urban and pop universe as a vocal tracking engineer,
yeah,
this particular mic has a little bit of it's more of a neutral, softer top end than I'm used to with like Sony C800s and 251s and C12s and stuff like that. So I might be, now that I have this JLM EQ, I might be able to use that as a top lift. And because I used this on Dochi one time. I was engineering with her engineer Jada, and Jada had mentioned that Dochi sounds good on a U67, and that is what this gets compared to most often. And so anyway, I was like, well, we should try it. And I was able to turn, it was like a little bit dark initially, and then I turned up 8K by 8 decibels.
Wow.
And I was like, there's no way this is gonna, and it was so smooth. So smooth. Like what, yes, what was there was like, the top end that was there was like less emphasized than what you get with a lot of modern mics. But once you boosted it, it wasn't spiky or stupid or inconsistent. It was like so buttery smooth all the way up to the top. So anyway, I might end up finding myself using this more on vocals as I get to know it better.
Yeah.
But right now, it really blows me away on instruments. Like I had the opportunity to use this as a mono overhead on a drum kit recently, and it's the best mic I've ever put in that position.
That's amazing.
I'm so impressed.
And what are you using for your speakers?
I've settled on, I had a studio mate in sharing this space with me, wonderful man named Jason Lowry. Shout out, Jason.
Yeah.
When we were still in this space together, he brought in a pair of these barefoot footprint 01s. He had a really good experience at a studio that was all barefoot. And anyway, I don't know why I was a little bit skeptical, maybe just because they're a different size and shape kind of than I'm used to seeing. But I loved them pretty immediately, and they really have helped me push my mixes. They just give me more information and more resolution than I've ever had with another speaker. And I think I'm unported. I might be unported for life. If these are my first unported speakers, and really like the way that low frequency transients hit so instantaneously is it's a big deal for the kind of music that I'm working on. I think I might be pretty sold on unported speakers.
Yeah, and then you have are these the Avantone ones or?
Yeah.
How do you like them?
I love them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. I find them really, really informative, and it always lets me, I don't know, man. There's a part of my brain that wants to go way too tweaky on everything.
Yeah.
Like, if you let me, I'll do 50 revisions of any given mix, you know what I mean? And so sometimes I'll be in this really tweaky headspace, and then I sort of know that that's a good time to take a walk around the block and come back and just listen on the Avantones for a little bit. And it's like a reality check where I start thinking about like, okay, what's really important? How is this going to feel on laptop speakers?
Yeah.
You know, how is it going to feel out of a phone? It helps me get out of my head, I think, a lot. And the imaging is crazy on these like single-ended speakers like that. The imaging is ridiculous. The Phantom Center's like crazy.
Okay, let's move to this side of the room.
Yeah. To your left, we've got a bunch of really beautiful guitar amps that I never plug into anymore.
Never plug into? No.
No, it's really sad. I just need to find myself in a bigger space. Yeah, this is an old Ampeg Reverberocket 2. The reverb is fried on that one, but it just sounds so cool. It has this really cool mid-range kind of three-dimensional mid-range to it. This guy is so chimey and voxy and awesome. Little 15-watt Class A EL 84, I think. thing. This was my first vintage amp and kind of blew my mind. All of the bands that I played this amp in hated me because like it really doesn't open up until it's on like 3.5 or 4, and then then you're like louder than the drummer at that point. It's four 10-inch speakers, so it just pushes an insane amount of air.
Yeah.
But
Classic.
I love that thing so much. It just does the best karang.
Yeah.
Like when you get it really going. Oh, it's so beautiful. I really love that thing.
Absolutely.
And then Benson, I used to play in a band with my friend Chris Benson from Benson Amps.
Nice.
And we were playing in a band together. He was playing guitar in this band while he was prototyping the monitor. He was like working on this design while we were playing in a band together. And I remember every week that we would get together, I was like, this dude's tone is insane. What is all of this weird shit that he's playing out of? And he turned it into a whole amp company. I think he makes some of the best amps out there.
Absolutely. I mean, he's definitely famous, so wow. And then
I think that's a 72 or 73 twin that's been converted. It's pre-master volume, so it was before they moved to the master volume.
So it's a loudspeaker.
Yeah, and it's been converted back to the black panel spec.
Right. Amazing. Over this side of the studio?
Over this side, let's see, a ton of incense and a farfisa and a lap steel and a pedal steel.
Does a farfisa still work?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love that thing. That sounds cool.
Yeah, very classical. And a pedal steel.
Mm-hmm.
Love this ones. Next time I come to the US, I'll try to bring one back.
Oh yeah, you really should. Oh my God, these things are, it's one of the most, it's like a singer.
Yeah.
It's such a vocal instrument.
Absolutely. And it's like I could sit and listen to it for hours.
When I first got it,
yeah,
before I knew how to do anything on it, my friend Patrick used to have me up to his studio, and he was like, we're just going to run you through a POG and put that through a bunch of reverb.
Yeah.
And then like put some room mics up in the room, and you're just going to make pads. And that's all.
Okay.
You don't have to, and then just the joy that we would experience of hearing the chord change in a slidey way rather than like in a blocky way.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, that is cool. Like, I'll learn the licks later, but it is cool just to make chords on that thing.
Absolutely.
And to be like super Daniel Lanois and ambient with it.
And what microphone do you have here?
Oh man, this is, I'm pretty blown away by this thing. This is Lewitt, was kind enough to send me this mic.
Nice.
This is the Pure Tube, the Lewitt Pure Tube that they just started making. It's completely capacitorless.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really cool design idea to try to just get as much clarity and as little,
Look at the tube.
Yeah, you can see it right there. You can see it glowing when you're singing into it. But man, this thing, it's early days. Like they just sent it over. I've only had a chance to sing through it myself a couple of times, and I hate my voice. But I'm really, really excited about it. Lewitt in general, their mics have sort of a family sound.
Yeah.
And it's this very modern, bright, clear thing. Right. And I personally love it. We used a Lewitt 240, the cheapest mic that they make. We used that on Doja's vocal at one point.
Really?
The 251 was in the shop.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of random. The house engineer at Sound Factory, he was like, hey, the 251 we usually use is in the shop right now. And I put a Lewitt up, just for the day. And I was like, okay, cool. I assumed at that point that it was the 940. I thought it was one of the tube mics that Lewitt makes.
Yeah.
But he had put the 240 up and it sounded good.
Wow.
It sounded really good. And when my sister got into doing voiceover, I got her a 440 Pure.
Yeah.
Because I just thought really nice, clear sound,
Absolutely.
super low noise. But anyway, I'm a fan of the Lewitt vibe.
Yeah, lots of people are. I haven't tried them yet. I love this ones over here.
My God, I just got to try those on. They absolutely blew me away on piano.
Yeah.
Like that the first time that I used them on this piano, I was like, okay, I have my piano mics figured out for the rest of my life. And then I just got to use them on overheads on a drum session recently.
Yeah.
I've never been so happy with a pencil condenser like that.
Right.
They just sound incredible.
I've never seen those kind of clamps.
It's a bunch of different components all put together.
So you made it yourself?
Yeah, but there's a really great, here in Burbank, there are amazing electronics shops, and then also amazing like lighting and like basically there's tons of stuff for people who work on film sets
Right.
that have to solve like really complex visual and audio problems all the time. And so there's like this store, it's called Amatron. It's up in Burbank, and they just have everything you would ever need to mount any mic to anything ever. I can't remember, I want to give credit, but I can't remember who said this, but a friend of mine said a long time ago, they said, new engineers get excited about Guitar Center, experienced engineers get excited about Home Depot.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's all of these like little ergonomic concerns
Yeah.
where you're sort of like, wait a second, the musician has to be comfortable.
Yeah.
It can't be visually cluttered. It has to still sound good. And then like you're really dealing with like a mechanical solution
Exactly.
at that point. Dude, another thing that's cool about the goosenecks, I don't know about yourself, but I might enjoy recording the back of an acoustic piano even more than the front of it.
Really?
And the cool thing about the goosenecks is you can just,
Oh,
and
nice.
they just go right on the back of it.
That's
Really
amazing.
cool. It's way more of a Tom Waits
Yeah.
kind of a sound. It's like coming from everywhere rather than being more, I feel like this is more of a grand piano kind of a sound. And then off the back of it, it's like way more soupy. And anyway, I love that.
Amazing. The acoustic treatment, do you do it yourself or?
Yeah, my friend Jason that I keep referencing, who I used to be in here with, we built them together.
That's amazing. Sounds really good in here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, very tight sound, and yeah, it feels very nice.
I mean, in addition to the soldering journey, which definitely put higher quality gear on the menu for me at a point when I had no budget for it. You know what I mean? I would say I'm really an evangelist for not only acoustic treatment, but just for like some of the biggest growth that I experienced as a mix engineer was simply as a result of being able to hear better.
Right.
And if I could go back in time, there were years of my life where I was chasing my tail with like techniques and digital tools and like, so, oh, maybe I should try Michael Brower's, compression. And like, I just needed to fucking hear better.
Yes.
I just needed, if I could go back in time and just get myself barefoots and acoustic treatment and a good DAC like earlier on, and I would have been doing better work a lot sooner.
Yeah, it's like the best hardware you can buy is like acoustic treatment.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And I feel like,
and it's not sexy, but
it's so not sexy. And I there's a couple of like online spaces that I've started monitoring. I'm interested in the education sphere maybe at some point when I'm not so bogged down with like day-to-day sessions. And so I've been interested in like what sort of questions do younger engineers have right now, or engineers that are just starting out. And it is interesting, the cost of good monitoring and then the time invested in like building all of this crap and being covered in insulation fibers for days on it and everything like that. It's expensive and it's not fun. And like you were saying, it's not sexy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a big Neve N on it for you to show your clients or a Neumann badge or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just so, I think it's a little bit tragic that younger engineers only find out later that they should have just improved their monitoring and like done everything else. Whenever I'm talking to younger engineers, I say the most expensive thing in your studio should be your speakers. And that should maybe always be true. Like if you get a $6,000 microphone, then I hope you have $9,000 speakers on. You know what I mean? Like who cares how nice that part of it is if you can't hear what it's telling you? Listen, in LA, I don't want to talk shit, but you definitely, there are a bunch of people in this town who got a lot of money at a certain point and then just asked a friend of theirs, like, what's good? Yeah. Just give me the whatever's, you know what I mean? Yeah. Not a whole lot of thought put into it. And so you'll go over to a producer's house and see, ATCs in an untreated room going through a PreSonus central station. And it's like, how is that? Why have the nice, never mind. You know what I mean? Like, you see some pretty wild shit.
Thank you so much for showing us your amazing studio. What's the name of the studio?
It doesn't really, Ryan's Place.
Ryan's Place, love it. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks for having the interest to come here. It was really nice having you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're a really nice guy, and I love your studio. I mean, I can see lots of common things with mine, and this is the kind of studio.
We got to do sessions in here together at some point.
Oh, yes, please. Let's. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.